समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
There has been a big development in the Air India 171 crash probe. The Supreme Court has now stepped in response to a public interest petition filed by a pilot who runs the Safety Matters Foundation. The Supreme Court has specifically said that it is unfortunate and irresponsible the way a narrative is being shaped using innuendo and insinuations to point a finger at the commander of the ill-fated plane, Captain Sumit Sabharwal, and Captain Clive Kunder, who was actually flying when the plane crashed. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo story. On the program today, we continue to follow each development in the Air India 171 crash, the plane that crashed right on takeoff from Ahmedabad as it was headed for London. For the last some months, we have seen a concerted campaign, a whisper campaign, to point a finger at the mental health of Captain Sumit Sabharwal. In fact, the preliminary probe report that was placed in the public domain had a very vague summary of a conversation that purportedly took place between the two pilots in the cockpit, in which one pilot says to the other, "Why did you cut off the fuel control switch?" And the other pilot responds, "I did not." Neither pilot is identified by name, but because it was Clive Kunder who was flying the plane and the commander was in fact on the other side, it has now been suggested in sections of Western media as well as some sections of Indian media that Captain Sumit Sabharwal deliberately, knowingly turned the fuel control switches from run to cut-off mode, thereby causing the plane to crash. It has now taken two developments, two letters written by Sumit's 91-year-old father seeking justice for his son, one to the Aviation Minister and another to the Federation of Pilots. In these letters, Sumit's father reveals that officials of the probe panel actually came to meet him, pretending to offer condolences, and then proceeded to blame his son for the crash, specifically suggesting to the father that he turned the fuel control switches from run mode to cut-off mode. And now comes the very important development. A public interest litigation, a petition filed in the Supreme Court by Captain Amit Singh, who runs the Safety Matters Foundation. You've seen him on our program ever so often saying that the preliminary investigation report is compromised and that it has been in too much of a hurry to give a clean chit to the manufacturers, to Boeing, to GE and so on. And today the court showed its inclination to agree with many of the points made in this petition, including the narrative that has been selectively built up to blame the pilot, Captain Sumit Sabharwal. I want to welcome Captain Amit Singh to the program today. He's the one who actually filed that PIL in the Supreme Court. And now what's happened is that the court has issued notices to all of the parties. Amit Singh's petition demands a court-monitored independent probe. So, Captain Amit Singh, thank you for your time, and really your effort seems to have borne some fruit, some movement in this case, and some hopeful shutting down of the propensity to blame without evidence Captain Sumit Sabharwal. How do you feel about what's happened in the court today, sir?
Well, I'm glad that the judges gave a patient hearing and were supportive of the fact that such utterances should not have been made. The ones which blamed or indirectly blamed the pilots for shutting off the fuel control switches, or the narrative which was built. So this kind of irresponsible act was highlighted by the court, and I'm glad, and it sets a precedence that in future such actions should not be repeated. And the second part is the just and fair probe. So we wanted an independent, fair, transparent probe, which the courts have basically tried to or sent notices to the government so that they seek an answer from them, that how do they plan to ensure that the public, the traveling public, is a major stakeholder. So they need to know what's happening with the probe and what are the issues. Is there any issue with the aircraft or with the infrastructure or pilot training, whatever the case may be? So that needs to be known to the public at large. In some countries where there is a generative safety culture like Japan, the airlines on their website, they list out all the incidents which have happened with the particular airline so that the passenger has a choice to see the safety record of the airline and then choose. Here we try to hide all the issues under the carpet and try to paint a rosy picture that everything is functioning fine. So if we have to become the largest, now we are the third largest aviation sector in the world, then we need to be open, admit that there are deficiencies, and build a strong foundation. So that is what is the need of the hour, so that people trust each other. And to have a transparent probe, that is an example that we are prepared to take the issues head on and then move forward to build a strong foundation.
So I want to share some of the observations that were made in the court today. One of the points that the judges said was that there's a very unfortunate narrative of pilot error. In fact, when Prashant Bhushan pointed out in the Supreme Court that the preliminary investigation report, which was widely published, it was in the public domain, actually had this reference to the fuel control switches that then created this narrative of pilot error. The judge specifically said that's very unfortunate. He spoke about the need for confidentiality. There was talk of piecemeal leaks. And the other really important thing, Captain Singh, that was said was how the judge felt that Boeing and Airbus were not going to be questioned. And that the exact quote was Boeing and Airbus. I mean, he meant it in a general sense. The plane that crashed was made by Boeing. But he said that, these big companies, they will not be attributed with fault. Instead, one company, in this case Air India, will be blamed. So the judge actually made this observation in open court. One of the things that you have been saying throughout is that electrical failure isn't even being looked at. What triggered a dual engine failure is not even being looked at. It's not the batteries of the 787, which are infamous for their problems, are not even being looked at. The FAA directive on a water leakage issue that could have led to an electrical failure is not even being looked at. The fact that the rear black box and the front black box were found in two very different conditions is not even being looked at. So talk a little bit about this, the fact that the judge made this observation. It's an observation, it's not an order. It's an observation about how, the companies are not looked at, the manufacturers are not looked at, a finger is pointed at the pilot.
By drawing the narrative towards the pilot and the mental health issues or suicide angle, the agencies, whoever they may be, or corporates, are trying to deflect the technical aspects of the investigation. And the bigger issue is that at this moment, there are planes flying. Now, if you divert the whole issue to a human angle and ignore the technical part, which means the technical deficiencies are still prevalent as people are flying right now. So that is the unfortunate part, that you are aware that there are certain deficiencies in the aircraft. As has been pointed out earlier in various courts in the US, 1987 onwards, the Boeing 737 had a few fatal accidents in flown by US Air and United. There were rudder issues, and it was found that Boeing was aware of the known design defects, but they did not do anything till it came to a point that they had to pay huge compensations. And then we had issues with the MAX, everybody's aware, the 787 batteries. So Boeing culture is what needs to be looked at. So are we comfortable with that? So India needs to take a decision, because our issue is that we take or buy an aircraft, induct an aircraft based on the certification given by FAA or EASA, the European regulator or the American regulator. But we do not have our own infrastructure or people who can independently evaluate an aircraft. So that is why we have to rely on whatever they give, whatever airworthiness directive they issue, we take it blindly. If it is a recommendation, we take that as a recommendation. We do not evaluate that. Will that recommendation become an issue for us, and we should convert it into a mandatory uh, circular? So we do not go to that extent. So we have to build our own infrastructure and foundation so that we can independently evaluate. So technical issues, right? Like you pointed out, all the issues, there were pre-existing faults in the aircraft. While the aircraft taxied out, there were certain faults which came, which are not listed in the preliminary report. By ignoring these faults, we are only hiding issues, and these are called latent threats. So latent threats keep lying down till a catalyst comes up, something triggers, and all these threats come to the fore. So that
Yeah.
is what is this is a safety parlance, latent threat. So these are all lying ready to come up. They are volatile, but they need a trigger. So the moment they get a trigger, all of them come up and combine, and the aircraft meets with an accident. That's a accident theory. So this is probably what has happened, and nobody is looking at those angles rather than diverting towards the human factor and trying to close the case, both in public perception and on paper.
You know, one of the words you used on one of our previous shows was that the probe panel seems to be priming the public to eventually blame the pilot. And one of the things that has taken place is that we know from a letter written by the father of Captain Sabarwal to the Federation of Pilots that probe panel officials went to his house on the pretext, he says, of offering condolences, and then proceeded to actually tell this 91-year-old man that your son basically cut off the fuel control switches. And that's when he wrote this letter to the aviation minister, he wrote it to the Federation of Pilots, and he said, I'll go to court too. And you said that there seems to be now enough material that the public is being primed for the pilot to be blamed.
So whenever an accident happens, uh, fear does not set in as fast as it should, because one, aviation is biggest means of transport. People do not have alternate means, so they have to travel. And secondly, it depends on how far, the distance of the accident. So if it happens very close to you, the fear sets in faster. Had it happened in any other country, that kind of fear would not have shown, like people canceling tickets and all, especially on the Boeing 787. So this kind of fear sets in. And what is important is the privacy. So, like it was pointed out in the court, that the CVR, the cockpit voice recorder, there are issues of privacy because people have spoken their last words. Those kind of words are totally protected as per international norms. So, because those are the dying words, so nobody can hear them. But regulations are moving towards that the family members should be given an opportunity to hear if they want. So that there are certain conditions to it. Certain tests have to be done to prove the fact that they are willing and they should be given access to this. So those kind of privacy issues are there. But if there are selective leaks in the media before the preliminary report is released, which means that the flight data recorder and even the cockpit voice recorder would have leaked transcript or audio files. So there is a famous case in the US in which the media got the CVR recording before the court could have a copy of it. So after that, all these regulations became very stringent. So now the privacy issues are of concern. If people land up at the grieving father's house, it is again a privacy issue, and under the pretext of offering condolences. So that is even more worrisome, because there is somebody who is authorizing all these issues. So somebody authorizes, and people land up means that there is a systematic or there is a system which is working to drive that narrative. So that is still happening. It is not that it happened before the preliminary report. It is still happening, and they are still looking for an evidence or a hook to latch onto, and then blame the pilot.
Yeah. Let's go back to what happened in court today. Now, you have asked for a court monitored probe, Captain Amit Singh, and one of the points you've been making is that you find the integrity of this probe, the integrity of the CVR, the integrity of the black box compromised. Can you elaborate on that and the specific demand that your petition has made in court?
So, an independent, fair, transparent, and expeditious inquiry is demanded. For that purpose, what is an independent uh, investigation? An independent body has to investigate. The AAIB is deemed to be independent, but the very act says that AAIB is an attached office of the Ministry of Civil Aviation. So that basically does not constitute or is the definition of independence.
You have also,
And
your PIL has also alleged a conflict of interest in the present
yeah.
probe team, and you have said that there are at least 3 people who are affiliated to the DGCA, and so therefore this is a conflict of interest. Can you elaborate on this?
So the act makes two bodies, and both of them are headed by director generals, the Director General Civil Aviation and Director General AIB. And the objective of or the responsibility of the DGCA is safety oversight and ensure that the planes are flying in a condition which is airworthy and safe, and the pilots are trained, etc. So oversight is their biggest issue, and regulation, and ensuring that regulations are followed. So if those very people who are in charge of safety, who will be probed in this investigation, are a part of the team or form the majority of the part of the team, then there is a
Yeah.
conflict of interest, which means there will be some, uh, if not 100%, even if 40% chance is there that they might try to defend their organization.
Yeah.
So there is a possibility that the whole agenda could be hijacked, or the final outcome could be different from what is expected. So because we are looking at the root cause, the judiciary looks at the proximate cause, that who caused the accident, who was the closest person. But
Yeah.
safety looks at the root cause, which means if you eliminate that cause, this accident would not have happened. For that, you have to go deep. You have to look at the organizations like the corporate, between the airlines, the safety organizations, the MROs, etc., and within them the departments. So you have to go very deep inside to find out where exactly this started. So for that purpose, you need trained manpower and unbiased people who are genuinely interested in uh, safety and determining a root cause. So this conflict of interest basically uh,
And
is
there's an
uh,
and there's an yeah, and there's another dimension to the preliminary report. The judges seem to suggest that even the publishing of the preliminary report, although that's required by law to do, but the fact that this one sentence about the fuel control switches, which is not an exact verbatim transcript of the entire cockpit voice recorder, but a kind of summary as the probe panel deemed fit, that has already created a possible bias in the minds of the public. That's one. The second is that the preliminary report gave a clean chit to the manufacturer. So, and the judge had an observation about that today, about how Boeing and Airbus will never be attributed with fault. So, do you believe that the entire probe so far has been compromised, that it's a compromised process?
see, the preliminary report itself states that the emergency locator transmitter, which is a very important device which locates the aircraft, uh, did not activate. Supposed to activate on impact, but did not activate. So
The
had this aircraft
emergency, can you explain this again? The emergency?
emergency locator transmitter. So it's a transmitter
Okay.
which on an impact, or if the aircraft uh, accident happens over high seas.
Yeah.
So if it goes under the sea, it is water activated. So it
Yeah.
transmits signal which can be tracked by the satellites. So you know the position of the aircraft, and then rescue and fire services etc., will do the job. First is to locate the aircraft. So that equipment did not activate. It is written in the preliminary report, but still there is no technical recommendation, which means there might be other aircraft flying with the same equipment, which would not function in case of an accident. This is very obvious. It is written in the report. Then the state of the black box, the rear black box has totally melted. It is a crash-proof
Yeah. Can we show those on our
black
screen?
box.
Because while you talk about it, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So it is supposed to, the left side is the rear one. The rear, everybody has seen images, the tail broke off first.
Yeah.
And this black box fell on the rooftop. The big fire happened in the forward part, which is further on the ground. And the right black box was in the fuel spill area where the biggest explosion happened. So that one survived. You can look at the suit, the black suit, which is typical of a fire. The left one does not have suit and is totally melted, which means the flame temperatures were very high. It
At the
is,
rear. At the rear.
yeah, at the rear, where there was no fire or very little fire as compared to forward.
Yeah.
So this kind of melting and kind of no soot indicates there was very high temperature, which is usually associated with a lithium-ion battery fire. There, the temperature goes straight away to 1500 degrees and above, and the soot doesn't form. There is some silverish residue which is left, so you can see it. So, despite this, there was no move or no effort to determine or comment even that what could have happened and determine, because this is typically because of some electrical disturbance.
Yeah.
Nothing else can cause this fire. So these are what I'm quoting is from the preliminary report that you can see.
Yeah.
So these are issues.
So you made 2 points. One, that the report itself says that the emergency locator activator did not activate. Emergency locator transmitter. Am I saying it correctly? Emergency
Correct.
locator transmitter did not activate, which is supposed to send a distress signal, basically, and that there could be other 787s flying, a fleet of 1,200 in the world somewhere, where this could happen again, God forbid. And the other point that you're making is, how was the rear black box found in the condition that it was in? And why has there been no move by the probe panel to even look at any of these questions? And instead, with this one little insinuation of the CVR, the cockpit voice recorder, there's a kind of whisper campaign against the pilot.
Yeah. Then, if you look at the investigation process, the report itself says that the rear black box was found on 13th June,
Yeah.
and the front one was found in the rubble on 16th June. From 16th till 24th, the black boxes are supposed, as per the report, were kept in Ahmedabad. But you have a brand new facility, readout facility in Delhi. So what is the point of keeping this black box in Ahmedabad? Because ultimately the report, the investigation process says, as soon as you get the black box, you have to find out what's inside it, so that if there is any anomaly, any fault, which you have, which you can determine, you can inform globally, worldwide, all the operators. But if you keep it from 16th to 24th, basically you are that is essential evidence which is kept, and aircraft continue to fly. 23rd, the report says the golden chassis was brought from the US. That is a replica of a black box. In case the black box gets damaged, then the data is transferred from the chip to this replica, which does not have a write capability. So it cannot write over it. It can only store data. So that is transferred. So who determined that a golden chassis is required without even opening the black box? If black box was in Ahmedabad and not in the facility, by seeing it, you cannot say that the chip is damaged, because the chip is deep inside the crash proof. So somebody has to open it. Where did they open it if the black box was not in Delhi? So these are certain very important questions that need to be asked about data integrity. If the data leaks were there, the central government has not denied that there was no leak, nor have they confirmed. So there is no communication.
Let me ask you finally. You also, in response to your petition, the court has issued these notices. They have not yet. You did seek access to the flight data recorder, which we colloquially call the black box, and the court said now is probably not a good time. But there is a parallel case, if we can please come out of this, there is a parallel case ongoing in the United States where there is a US attorney who's also representing some of these families, and he's also asking for access to the black box data. So this is ongoing. I just want to end with asking you finally, what is your hope? The Supreme Court has definitely sought to shut down this premature finger pointing based on innuendo at the pilot. They have issued notices to all of the parties. You have demanded a court monitored probe. What is your hope at this point? You are raising several important questions about how technical dimensions of the plane have not been looked at, and instead there seems to be a deflection attempt by constantly talking about the mental health, true or false, of the pilot. Now, I want you to, and by the way, the father, I should say, on the subject of mental health has taken on all of these questions head on. He has spoken about, Sumit's divorce, saying it was 15 years ago, his mother's death, saying it was 3 years ago, and has been, he has just said very heartbreakingly that I'm a bereaved father seeking justice for the reputation of my son. As someone who's shown the proactiveness to go to court, Amit, last question to you, what do you hope for now at this juncture?
I hope that through the court we get a transparent and independent investigation, which means that more experts are involved. Right now it is a closed door investigation and public is not aware. And ICAO also says that public has a right to know what is happening in the investigative process through right to information, or even the accident victims, near and dear ones, they need to know. So those are as per regulations. So regulations have to be complied with, one, and then you have to set a precedence that we have the capability and we can get experts from within India to come together and get a report which determines the root cause, actually, the truth.
Yeah.
So in the past, we have seen that the pilots have been blamed ever since, just because they're not able to defend themselves. They're not there. So that is why the whole this effort is there, that for once, let us come together and stand by the truth.
Well done to you. I think at least the Supreme Court, the top court of this land, has now said that this speculative sort of, fear-mongering or rumor-mongering rather about Captain Sumit Sabharwal is very unfortunate. It is very irresponsible, and it's just not on. In an open court, the judges have said that the manufacturers need to be looked at instead of just jumping down on the pilot or the airline. Notices have been issued to all of the parties, and it will be very important now to see how they respond. You have also argued about a conflict of interest in this probe panel, and you are asking, like the father of the commander of AI-171, for a fresh, independent, court-monitored probe. Thank you, Captain Singh. I know a lot of people in the aviation community, and in particular the pilots' families, the crew, the cabin crew's families, would be grateful to you today. Thank you very much, and we'll keep following up on how what shape this case takes. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.